Professor Velnik had taught at the Galactic Academy for 300 years. He was old, even by his species standards. His gray skin had turned pale with age. His 4 eyes had grown tired from reading countless books. But he still loved his work. He loved teaching young minds about the history of the galaxy. His classroom was large and round. Seats rose up like stairs in a circle around his desk. Students from 7 different planets came to learn from him. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had no faces at all. But they all wanted to know about the past. Velnik was famous for one topic above all others. The humans. Every new class asked about them. Every year, the same questions came. What were they like? How did they die? Were the stories true? Velnik would always smile and shake his head. He would wave his 4-fingered hand and speak in his slow, patient voice. Humans were a young species, he would say. They lived on a small blue planet called Earth. They were strange creatures. They had soft skin but hard bones. They could not see well in the dark. They could not hear very far. They were weak in almost every way. The students would lean forward in their seats. But Velnik would continue. They were also impossible to kill. He would tell them the old stories. Humans could run for days without stopping. They would chase animals until the animals died from exhaustion. They could survive wounds that would kill any other species. Cut off their limb, and they would tie it closed and keep fighting. Poison their air, and they would build machines to breathe. Burn their cities, and they would rebuild them in a single generation. They were dangerous, Velnik would say. Not because they were strong, but because they never gave up. They never stopped. They kept coming, no matter what. The students would shiver with fear and excitement. But do not worry, Velnik would tell them. The humans are gone now. They destroyed themselves 400 years ago. Their planet is dead. Their ships are dust. They are nothing but a memory. This was the story everyone believed. This was the story Velnik had taught his whole life. Until today. It was the first day of the new school year. Velnik stood at his desk, looking at his list of students. The names were familiar. Kelthians from the ice world. Drovians from the gas giants. Morviks from the desert planet. All the usual species. Then he saw it. One name that did not belong. Park June. Species. Human. Planet of origin. Earth. Velnik stared at the words. His 2 hearts began to beat faster. This had to be a mistake. Someone was playing a joke on him. Humans were extinct. Everyone knew that. The door to the classroom slid open. A figure walked in. It was tall but not too tall. It walked on 2 legs with a smooth, easy movement. Its skin was a warm brown color, like wood from the old forests of Velnik's home world. Its hair was black and cut short. Its face had 2 eyes, 1 nose, and 1 mouth. It looked so simple, so plain. So human. The creature looked around the room. Every student had stopped moving. A Kelthian girl in the front row had turned pale blue with fear. A Drovian boy had dropped his tablet. The room was completely silent. The human did not seem to notice. It walked to an empty seat in the 3rd row and sat down. It pulled out a small device and looked up at Velnik with calm, patient eyes. "Good morning, Professor," it said. Its voice was soft and pleasant. "Am I late?" Velnik could not speak. His throat had closed up. His hands were shaking. 300 years of teaching, and he had never felt fear like this. Deep inside his brain, something old and primal was screaming at him. Run. Hide. This creature is dangerous. But he could not run. He was the professor. He had to stay calm. "You are." Velnik's voice came out as a whisper. He tried again. "The records say your species is extinct?" The human smiled. Its teeth were white and flat, but Velnik could see the pointed ones near the front. Predator teeth. Meat-eater teeth. Yes, I get that a lot. But how? Velnik asked. The great silence. 400 years. No signals. No ships. Nothing. The human shrugged. It was such a simple movement, but somehow it said everything. We survived. We are here. Deal with it. My name is Park June, the human said. I am here to study history. I read your book about ancient civilizations. It was very good. I especially liked the chapter about the fall of the Morvic Empire. He tilted his head to one side. Though I think you made some mistakes about my species. Velnik felt dizzy. A human was sitting in his classroom. A human was criticizing his book. A human was speaking to him like this was all perfectly normal. The other students had not moved. They sat frozen in their seats, staring at June like he was a ghost. Or a monster. Or both. June looked around at them. His expression was gentle, almost kind. I know this is strange for all of you, he said. I know what you have been taught about my people. But I promise you, I am just here to learn. I mean no harm to anyone. He turned back to Velnik and waited. Slowly, with great effort, Velnik forced himself to breathe. He was a professor. He had survived wars and plagues and the fall of 3 empires. He could survive 1 human student. Very well, he said. His voice was still shaking, but it was stronger now. Welcome to History of Ancient Civilizations, Mr. Park. Please open your tablet to Chapter 1. June smiled again. Thank you, Professor. And so the lesson began. Velnik taught. The students listened. Everything seemed normal, but nothing would ever be normal again. Velnik knew this. He could feel it in his old bones. The myths had come to life. And the galaxy would never be the same. The news about Park June spread across the academy like fire. By the end of the first day, everyone knew. A human was here. A real, living human. The species that was supposed to be dead. Students whispered in the hallways. Teachers talked in low voices in the break rooms. Security officers walked past June's dormitory every hour, watching and waiting for something bad to happen. But nothing bad happened. June went to his classes. He ate in the cafeteria. He studied in the library. He did everything a normal student would do. He was polite to everyone. He smiled often. He asked questions in class and took careful notes. At first, nobody would sit near him. The seats around him were always empty. Other students would walk the long way around to avoid passing him in the hall. They were afraid, but June did not seem to mind. He just kept being friendly. He said hello to everyone. He held doors open for people. He helped a lost first-year student find her classroom. Slowly, very slowly, people began to relax. A Keltian girl named Myra was the first to speak to him. She was small and shy, with silver skin and large purple eyes. She sat 3 rows behind June in Professor Velnik's class. One day, she dropped her tablet, and June picked it up for her. Thank you, she said. Her voice was tiny with fear. You are welcome, June replied. I like your hair decoration. The crystals are very pretty. Myra touched the small crystals woven into her hair. Nobody had ever said they were pretty before. She did not know what to say. I am Park June, he said. What is your name? Myra, she whispered. Nice to meet you, Myra. Maybe we can study together sometime. That small moment changed everything. Myra told her friends that the human was nice. Her friends told other friends. Soon, people were less afraid. Then more humans arrived. 3 weeks after June, a female human named Yuna walked into the xenobiology department. She had long black hair tied back in a simple tail. Her eyes were dark and warm, and she laughed easily. She was studying alien medicine because she wanted to help people. A week after Yuna, a male human named Tay joined the engineering program. He was tall and broad, with thick arms and a quiet voice. He did not talk much, but when he did, his words were kind of by the end of the first month. There were 12 humans at the academy. The Galactic Council began to ask questions. Where were these humans coming from? How had they survived the Great Silence? What did they want? Official messages were sent to the humans. Please explain your presence. Please provide information about your species. Please state your intentions. The humans replied with simple words. We are students. We want to learn. We mean no harm. This was not good enough for the council. They wanted answers. They wanted to understand. 400 years ago, the human species had been declared extinct. The records were clear. Their planet was dead. Their civilization was gone. There should be no survivors. And yet here they were. Healthy, strong, educated. How is this possible? Professor Velnick asked himself the same question every night. He could not sleep. He could not eat. He kept thinking about June and the other humans. He watched them carefully in the days that followed. He noticed small things. The way they moved was smooth and efficient. They never seemed to get tired. One day, Tay carried a broken machine to the repair shop. The machine weighed more than 300 kilograms. Tay carried it alone, without any struggle. Another day, Velmick saw Yuna in the medical lab. She had cut her hand on a piece of glass. The cut was deep and blue-green blood flowed out. Wait, no, red blood. Human blood was red. Vel. Nick expected her to go to the medical bay. Instead, she simply wrapped her hand in a cloth and kept working. 3 days later, the cut was completely healed. Not even a scar remained. The myths were true. The stories were real. Humans could heal from terrible wounds. Humans were stronger than they looked. Humans did not stop. But the biggest myth was yet to be tested. It happened on a quiet evening in the science building. A fire broke out in one of the chemistry labs. The alarm screamed. Students ran for the exits. Smoke filled the hallways. Myra was trapped inside. She had been studying late, alone in a small room near the back of the lab. When the fire started, she tried to run, but the smoke was too thick. She could not see. She could not breathe. She fell to the floor, gasping for air. Then she heard footsteps. Fast, heavy footsteps running toward the fire. Not away from it. A figure appeared through the smoke. It was June. He was not wearing any protection. He had no mask, no suit, nothing. He was just running into a burning building with his bare hands. Myra! He shouted. Where are you? Here, she tried to say, but the smoke choked her voice. June found her anyway. He picked her up like she weighed nothing and ran for the exit. The fire was all around them. Flames licked at June's skin. The heat was terrible. Mira could feel it burning her scales. But June did not stop. He did not slow down. He carried her through the fire and out into the cool night air. When they reached safety, Mira saw June's arms. The skin was red and blistered. Burns covered him from his hands to his shoulders. He should have been screaming in pain. He should have collapsed. Instead, he looked at her with worried eyes. Are you okay? Can you breathe? Mira started to cry. Not from fear, from something else. Something she did not understand. The medical team arrived and took them both away. They treated Myra's minor burns and smoke damage. She would be fine in a few days. June's burns were worse. Much worse. The doctor said he should need months to recover. He was back in class the following week. His skin was smooth and perfect. No scars, no damage. Like the fire had never happened. The other students stared at him. They whispered and pointed. But the fear in their eyes was different now. It was mixed with something else. Respect, gratitude, wonder. Park June had run into a fire to save a stranger. He had been burned alive, and he had come back like nothing had happened. The myth said humans were dangerous. The myth said humans were monsters. But Myra knew the truth now, and soon everyone else would know it too. Professor Velnick sat in his office late at night. The lights were dim. His old eyes were tired from reading. Hundreds of documents were spread across his desk. Reports, records, files from 400 years ago. All about the humans. He had been searching for weeks. Something was wrong with the official story. The Great Silence, they called it. The moment when all human signals stopped. The moment when the entire species supposedly died. But the story did not make sense. The official records said humans destroyed themselves. They said humans fought a terrible civil war. They said humans used nuclear weapons on their own cities. They said the survivors died from radiation and disease. But Velnick found problems everywhere he looked. First, the dates were wrong. Different reports gave different dates for the Great Silence. Some said it happened in 1 year. Others said it happened over many years. The records did not match. Second, the evidence was missing. Where were the pictures of the destroyed cities? Where were the recordings of the battles? There should be proof. But Velnick could find nothing real. Only reports written by Confederacy officials. Third, some files were locked. Velnick tried to access them, but they were marked as secret. Only the highest members of the council could read them. Why would old history be secret? Velnick felt a cold fear growing in his chest. What if the official story was a lie? He thought about June and the other humans. They seemed peaceful. They seemed kind. If they had wanted revenge, they could have attacked the academy at any time. Instead, they sat in classrooms and studied. They helped other students. They smiled and made friends. This was not how a vengeful species would act. Velnick needed answers. Real answers. And there was only one way to get them. The next evening, he invited June to his office. June arrived at the exact time Velnick had requested. He was always on time. Always polite. He sat in the chair across from Velnick's desk and waited. Velnick poured 2 cups of warm tea. He gave one to June. His hands were shaking slightly. "Thank you for coming," Velnick said. "I know this is unusual. I was happy to receive your invitation," June replied. "I enjoy our conversations." Velnick nodded. He took a deep breath. Then he asked a question that had kept him awake for so many nights. What really happened 400 years ago? June was quiet for a long moment. He held the teacup in both hands, feeling its warmth. His expression did not change, but something shifted in his eyes. They became older, sadder. "You have been researching," June said. It was not a question. "Yes, the records do not add up. The story does not make sense." Velnick leaned forward. "Please, Mr. Park, I need to know the truth." June set down his teacup. He looked at the old professor with steady eyes. "The truth is not pleasant, Professor. I am an old man. I have lived through wars. I can handle unpleasant truths." June nodded slowly. Then he began to speak. 400 years ago, humanity was growing fast. We had spread to 17 planets. We had built a fleet of ships. We were young and eager and full of hope. He paused. We also had many problems. We fought among ourselves sometimes. We made mistakes. But we were learning. Velnick listened in silence. "The Galactic Confederacy was watching us," June continued. "They saw how quickly we grew. They saw how we adapted to every environment. They saw how we never gave up, no matter what problems we faced. And they became afraid. Afraid of what? Of what we might become. June's voice was calm, but Velnik could hear the old pain beneath the words. They decided we were too dangerous. Not because we had done anything wrong, but because we might do something wrong in the future. Velnik felt sick. What did they do? They came in the night. Hundreds of ships. They said nothing. No warning. No declaration of war. They just attacked. June closed his eyes for a moment. They bombed our cities. They poisoned our air. They burned our forests. They killed billions of people in a single week. The office was very quiet. Velnik could hear his own heart beating. The survivors ran underground, June said. Deep caves. Old tunnels. Anywhere we could hide. The Confederacy thought they had killed us all. They declared victory. They told the galaxy that humans had destroyed themselves. And everyone believed the lie. But you survived. We survived. June opened his eyes. 400 years underground, Professor. 400 years in darkness. Learning. Growing. Getting stronger. We built new technology. We developed new medicine. We trained our children to be patient and wise. We waited. Waited for what? For this moment. For the day when we could return to the stars. June smiled, but it was a sad smile. We could have come back with weapons. We could have brought warships and revenge. Believe me, many of our people wanted that. They wanted to make the Confederacy pay for what they did to us. But you did not. No, we chose a different path. June picked up his teacup again. We decided to send our young people to schools. We decided to make friends instead of enemies. We decided to show the galaxy who we really are. Velnik stared at the young human. So much pain. So much history. And yet June sat here drinking tea like they were discussing the weather. You could destroy us, Velnik whispered. After what we did. You have every right. Maybe, June said. But revenge would not bring back the billions who died. It would not heal the pain. It would only create more suffering. He looked at Velnik with clear, honest eyes. We came back because we still believe in something better. We still believe that different species can live together in peace. Even species that have hurt each other. Velnik felt tears forming in his old eyes. He had taught history for 300 years. He thought he knew everything about the galaxy. But he had been wrong. So terribly wrong. I'm sorry, he said. His voice broke. I am so sorry for what my people did to yours. June reached across the desk and placed his hand on Velnik's arm. The touch was warm and gentle. You did not do it, June said. You were not even born yet. The sins of the past belong to the past. What matters now is what we do next. They sat together in silence for a long time. Two old souls from different worlds. One who had taught lies. One who had lived through nightmares. And somehow, in that small office, they began to understand each other. The truth could not stay hidden for long. Professor Velnik shared what he learned with other teachers. Those teachers told their friends. Soon, whispers spread across the academy. The humans did not destroy themselves. The Confederacy killed them. The official history was a lie at first. Many people refused to believe it. How could the Confederacy do something so terrible? They were supposed to be the good ones. They were supposed to protect all species, but the evidence was too strong. More researchers started digging into the old files. They found the same problems Velnik had found. Wrong dates. Missing proof. Locked documents. The lie began to fall apart. The Confederacy Council went into emergency sessions. They did not know what to do. Some council members wanted to apologize. Others wanted to attack the humans before they could take revenge. The debates were loud and angry. Meanwhile, at the academy, something beautiful was happening. The students were standing up for their human classmates. It started with Myra. She went before the Academy board and told her story. She spoke about the fire and how June saved her life. She spoke about his burns and how he healed. She spoke about his kindness and his gentle smile. "I was taught to fear humans," she said. Her voice shook, but she did not stop. "I believed all the stories. I thought they were monsters. But Park Jun is not a monster. He's the bravest person I have ever met. He ran into fire for me. A stranger. Someone from a species that tried to kill his people. And he saved me anyway." The board members listened in silence, and other students came forward. A Drovian boy named Korik spoke about Yuna. "She studies medicine all night because she wants to help people," he said. "She does not care what species they are. When I was sick last month, she brought me soup every day until I felt better. She did not have to do that. She just wanted to." A Morvik student named Tal spoke about Tay. "In engineering class, we had to build a machine together. Tay did most of the work, but he gave credit to the whole team. When our design failed, he did not blame anyone. He just smiled and said we would try again. That kind of patience is rare." More and more stories came out. Humans sharing their food. Humans helping with homework. Humans staying late to tutor struggling students. Humans offering comfort when someone was sad. The humans were not perfect. They made mistakes like everyone else. But they were good. They were kind. They cared about others. Professor Velnik watched these testimonies with tears in his eyes. He had spent 300 years teaching that humans were dangerous. He had been wrong. So deeply wrong, but not everyone was convinced. A group of angry citizens formed outside the academy gates. They shouted and waved signs. They said humans were tricking everyone. They said the humans were planning something terrible. They demanded that all humans be removed from the academy immediately. The protests grew larger each day. News cameras came from across the galaxy. The whole universe was watching. Inside the academy, the human students stayed calm. They did not fight back. They did not argue. They simply continued going to class, studying, and being friendly to everyone. "Aren't you scared?" Myra asked June one afternoon. They were sitting in the library, trying to study while protesters shouted outside. "Of course I am scared," June said. "We have seen what fear can do. 400 years ago, fear made the Confederacy try to destroy us. Fear is a powerful thing. Then why are you so calm?" June smiled. "Because we have something stronger than fear." "What?" "Hope." He looked out the window at the crowd below. "Those people are afraid because they do not know us. They believe the old stories. But stories can change. People can change. It takes time and patience, but it happens. What if they never change? What if they attack you? Then we will protect ourselves. But we will not attack first." June turned back to Myra. "My people decided long ago that we would rather die than become the monsters they said we were. If we respond to hate with hate, then they were right about us all along." Myra did not know what to say. She had never met anyone like June. His people had suffered so much, yet they still chose kindness. It seemed impossible. It seemed foolish. But somehow, it also seemed brave. The next day, something unexpected happened. One of the protesters, an old Kelthian woman, collapsed outside the gates. She had been standing in the sun too long. Her body could not take the heat. The other protesters did not know what to do. They panicked. They shouted for help. Yuna was the first to reach her dot. She pushed through the crowd without hesitation. She knelt beside the old woman and checked her pulse. She gave her water. She fanned her face to cool her down. She stayed with her until the medical team arrived. The old woman looked up at Yuna with confused eyes. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. "I was here to protest against you. Una smiled gently. Because you needed help. That is reason enough. The news cameras captured everything. That night, the video played across the galaxy. Millions of people watched a human save someone who hated her. Millions of people saw kindness where they expected violence. The protests began to shrink. People started asking new questions. Maybe the old stories were wrong. Maybe humans were not monsters after all. In the Confederacy Council, the debates continued. But now more voices were speaking for peace. More members were willing to listen. The vote was coming soon. The vote that would decide the future of humanity in the galaxy. And for the first time in 400 years, the humans had reason to hope. The day of the vote arrived. Every screen in the galaxy showed the Confederacy Council chamber. Hundreds of representatives from hundreds of planets sat in their seats. The air was thick with tension. History was about to be made. The question was simple. Would the Confederacy accept humans back into galactic society? Or would they declare war and finish what they started 400 years ago? At the Academy, everyone gathered in the main hall to watch. Thousands of students and teachers crowded around giant screens. The human students sat together in the front row. Their faces were calm, but their hands were clasped tightly together. Professor Velnik sat beside June. The old professor had barely slept in days. He had done everything he could. He had written letters to council members. He had given interviews to news networks. He had told the truth to anyone who would listen. Now all he could do was wait. The debate lasted for hours. Representatives from different planets gave speeches. Some spoke with fear and anger. They said humans were too dangerous. They said the Confederacy should protect itself. They said the past would repeat itself if humans were allowed to stay. Others spoke with hope and courage. They talked about the students at the Academy. They talked about June running into fire. They talked about Una saving the protester. They said humans had proven themselves. They said everyone deserved a second chance. Finally, the speeches ended. The time for voting had come. The whole galaxy held its breath. One by one, the representatives pressed their buttons. Yes for peace. No for war. The numbers appeared on the screen, climbing higher and higher on both sides. It was close. So terribly close. When the final vote was counted, silence filled the chamber. The head of the council stood up and read the result. By a margin of 3 votes, the motion for peace is passed. The Galactic Confederacy officially recognizes humanity's right to exist among the stars. The Academy erupted in cheers. Students jumped from their seats. Teachers hugged each other. Somewhere, someone started crying. The noise was incredible. Joy filled every corner of the hall. June did not move. He sat very still, his eyes closed, his hands pressed together. Velnik saw tears running down the young man's face. 400 years of hiding. 400 years of fear. And now, finally, it was over. Velnik reached out and took June's hand. You did it, he said. Your people did it. June opened his eyes. We did it together, he said. All of us. That night, there was a great celebration at the Academy. Music played in every building. Food was shared in every hall. Species that had never spoken before danced together under the stars. The human students were surrounded by friends. Mira would not let go of June's arm. Cora kept bringing Una cups of her favorite drink. Even Tay, who never talked much, was laughing and telling stories. But June slipped away from the party as the night grew late. He needed a moment alone. He walked to the observation deck on top of the Academy's tallest tower. From there, he could see the whole city spread out below. Lights sparkled like jewels. Ships flew through the sky. Somewhere out there, billions of people were learning that humans still existed. Professor Velnik found him there an hour later. I thought I might find you here, the old professor said. He walked slowly to stand beside June. His bones ached, but he did not mind. May I join you? Of course. They stood together in silence, looking out at the stars. What happens now? Velnik asked. Now we begin, June said. The hard part is not over. It is just starting. There are still people who hate us. There are still people who fear us. It will take generations to build real trust. But you will try. We will always try. June smiled. That is what humans do. We never stop trying. Velnik nodded slowly. He had one more question. One that had been bothering him since this all began. Why did you come to my class? He asked. Of all the teachers at the academy, why choose the one who wrote a book calling your species a cautionary tale? June laughed softly. Because I read your book. All of it. And I could tell you were a good man who had been given wrong information. I thought if I could change your mind, I could change others. You used me. I believed in you. June looked at the old professor with warm eyes. There is a difference. Velnik was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something he had never done before. He extended his four-fingered hand to the human. I would like to learn more, he said. About your real history. About what your people went through. I want to write a new book. One that tells the truth. June took his hand and shook it firmly. I would be honored to help. In the months that followed, more humans arrived from the hidden places of Earth. They came as doctors and scientists. They came as artists and builders. They came as teachers and students. They came with open hands and open hearts. Hannah joined the medical program and began teaching alien doctors about human healing techniques. Suji became the first human diplomat, helping to solve conflicts between planets that have been fighting for centuries. They published a paper that changed how the galaxy understood physics. And Professor Velnik wrote his new book. He worked on it for 2 years. He interviewed hundreds of humans. He read thousands of documents. He learned things that broke his heart and things that gave him hope. When the book was finally published, he gave it a simple title, Humanity, the species that refused to die. In the dedication, he wrote words that would be remembered for generations. They were not the monsters we were taught to fear. They were not the myths we whispered about in the dark. They were merely human, kind and cruel, strong and weak, broken and healing. And that, as it turns out, was more than enough. They showed us that the greatest strength is not in weapons or technology. It is in the choice to offer mercy when you have every reason for revenge. It is in the courage to hope when all seems lost. The humans taught us this, and we are better for having learned it. The book became the most read text in galactic history, and somewhere in the stars, a small blue planet began to heal. Trees grew where bombs had fallen. Rivers ran clean where poison had flowed. Children played in sunlight instead of hiding in caves. Humanity had returned, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as partners in a galaxy that was finally ready to see them for who they really were. The myths had become real, and the reality was better than any legend.